Today, I want to share a story about a woman who walks alone, not because she's abandoned or lost, but because she has chosen her own path. From a young age, we're taught that life is incomplete without a partner, especially for women, who are often told they need a husband to be whole. But is this true? Is a woman less valuable because she chooses not to marry? Or is she in fact more? From the moment a girl is born, expectations swirl around her. She's taught how to speak, behave, and carry herself, all to fit into a role society has already decided for her. Marriage is framed not as an option but as an essential milestone, a requirement for respectability and security. These ingrained beliefs shape her thoughts, convincing her that her worth is tied to fulfilling prescribed roles. But what happens when a woman breaks free from these invisible chains? What happens when she rejects the traditional path to carve her own? There's immense strength in such a choice. A woman who walks alone without a husband by her side isn't weak or incomplete. Instead, she embodies a courage many fail to understand. Her strength doesn't come from societal approval or validation. It comes from within, an inner core unshaken by outdated norms. To walk alone in a world that insists you need someone to complete you takes extraordinary bravery. It requires deep self-awareness, trust in one's abilities, and resilience against criticism, judgment, and unsolicited opinions. Following a familiar road approved by others may feel easier, but stepping into the unknown, walking where few dare to tread, demands extraordinary strength. A woman who remains unmarried, not because she can't find a partner, but because she refuses to settle for anything less than alignment with her truth, understands her worth. She doesn't measure her value by a ring on her finger or the title of wife. Instead, she finds meaning in her experiences, authentic choices, and freedom to live on her terms. She often faces questions, raised eyebrows, whispers questioning her decision. Why is she still alone? Is something wrong with her? Doesn't she want a family? These aren't just words. They reflect deeply rooted mindsets tying a woman's purpose to marriage and motherhood. But she owes no explanations. Her life belongs to her, and she refuses to let societal expectations dictate her happiness. There's undeniable power in embracing solitude, not as a burden, but as a choice. She isn't afraid of silence, because she's learned peace in her own company. She isn't afraid of independence because she knows true strength lies in standing on her own. Approval-seeking fades because fulfillment comes from authenticity, not meeting expectations. Such a woman isn't against marriage or dismissive of those who choose it. She simply knows marriage isn't the sole path to a meaningful life. Love, companionship, and happiness take many forms, and a well-lived life isn't defined by societal norms but by the depth of one's experience. While others see her as incomplete, she sees herself as whole. Though some assume she's lonely, she knows she's free. The world tries to tell her she needs someone beside her, but she knows her journey is hers alone. In that realization lies a power no external validation can replace. Conditioning begins the moment a child is born. For women, this conditioning runs deeper. Stories heard in childhood, lessons taught by elders, all reinforce predefined roles. She's expected to grow up with a sense of duty toward family, society, and a future mapped out long before she had a say. Breaking free from this conditioning isn't easy. It's not just about making different choices. It's undoing years, even generations of beliefs passed down as truths. It's confronting voices, both external and internal, whispering, "This is how it's always been done." It's questioning everything taught and finding the courage to seek one's truth. A woman choosing a different path doesn't just face family or community expectations, she challenges centuries of tradition. Every step outside accepted lines meets resistance. She's reminded, directly or indirectly, that she's going against the grain, risking loneliness, rejection, and regret. Fear of judgment, fear of being labeled different, holds many back. But there comes a moment when she realizes living under these expectations isn't truly living. She begins seeing the gap between what she's been told and what she truly wants. Invisible walls built around her start to crumble as she questions their reality. She understands the fears she carries aren't hers. They're inherited constructs, meant to keep her in place. Breaking free isn't about rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's not rejecting everything taught or proving a point to others. It's discovering what's true for oneself. Asking, what do I really want? What makes me feel alive? Understanding that every choice must come from within, not obligation, to fulfill expectations set before she could decide. This journey isn't without struggle. Doubts arise, and the familiar path sometimes seems tempting. But once she sees conditioning for what it is, a framework designed to maintain order that may not serve her highest potential, she can't unsee it. Breaking free is gradual. It's learning to recognize, unlearn, and step beyond fear into possibility. She redefines success, happiness, and fulfillment, not according to imposed standards but based on truths discovered within. She realizes she's not bound by limitations placed on her. Her life doesn't need to fit a predefined shape. Walking this path, she may find herself alone at times, not because she's unworthy or mistaken, but because she's chosen a route few dare to take. She may lose some approval but gain something far greater: her voice, her power, her sense of self. And in that, she claims the freedom always hers to own. Aloneness is often misunderstood, frequently mistaken for loneliness, as if solitude must be corrected or escaped quickly. From a young age, people are conditioned to seek companionship, filling lives with noise, relationships, activities. Women, especially, are expected to surround themselves with family, partners, children. Society views her standing alone as unnatural, yet aloneness isn't weakness, affliction, or misfortune. It's one of the most profound states of being. Being alone doesn't mean abandonment or lack. It's a space to meet oneself without distraction, influence, or others' expectations clouding truth. Aloneness lets a person hear their thoughts clearly, feel emotions deeply, and understand who they are beyond assigned roles. A woman choosing to walk alone, not depending on a husband or relationship to define her existence, experiences rare self-discovery in a world fixated on external validation. Constant companionship shapes identity through others' reflections, how they perceive, judge, expect. But solitude strips away mirrors, leaving raw, unfiltered truth. This is why aloneness is powerful. It reveals what's real. It forces confrontation with one's mind, fears, deepest desires, free from outside opinions. A woman walking alone avoids compromises that come with constant companionship. She grows in directions that make sense to her, explores paths others might not understand but resonate deeply with her. She's not afraid of her own company because she's learned fulfillment doesn't come from another person. It comes from within. The world glorifies togetherness, romanticizing relationships as life's ultimate goal. Yet there's sacredness in someone comfortable with solitude, walking without seeking completion in another, content in their presence. Though the world sees her as alone, she knows she's not. She's with herself, and that's enough. From birth, people are conditioned to seek approval. As children, smiles from parents, nods from teachers, compliments from friends shape perceptions of right and wrong, acceptance and rejection. This need intensifies over time, shaping how individuals think, act, and view themselves. For women, this conditioning is stronger. They're expected to tie their value to validation. Approval seeking isn't inherently wrong. Wanting acknowledgement, visibility, appreciation is natural. But when it drives decisions, it becomes a prison. People become performers, adjusting to fit others' expectations, measuring worth through external opinions. Authenticity fades, replaced by versions acceptable to others rather than true selves. Dependency on approval makes personal truth-based choices nearly impossible. A woman walking alone, without societal markers of success like marriage, often feels this conditioning more acutely. Questions, judgments, advice bombard her about how she should live. Assumptions arise that she must be unhappy, searching, incomplete without a committed relationship. An unspoken belief suggests a woman not chosen by a man is somehow lacking, needing justification for her existence. Yet claiming the ability to exist beyond validation is her greatest power. defining herself on her terms, living dictated by inner knowing rather than approval, brings freedom in its truest form. No longer bound by invisible chains of expectation, she filters decisions through personal alignment rather than external acceptance. A profound shift occurs when external validation ceases to determine wholeness. The need to prove oneself disappears. Pressure to fit dissolves. There's no desperate chase for approval, fear of rejection, or attachment to being liked. Instead, unwavering confidence in existence emerges, deep trust in choices made. Breaking free from validation isn't easy. It requires self-awareness, willingness to unlearn conditioning, and courage to disappoint those expecting conformity. Sitting with discomfort, resisting the urge to explain oneself, walking away from approval-seeking behaviors, these steps peel back layers, examining ways one has been conditioned to seek affirmation. Shifting from, "I hope they approve of me," to "I approve of myself" transforms life. Criticism no longer affects deeply because another's opinion doesn't define reality. Praise doesn't dictate self-worth because value isn't determined by admiration. Permission isn't sought to live as desired, nor does disapproval steer her away from truth. Society rewards conformity, following rules, seeking approval. True fulfillment isn't found in acceptance but in being real. A woman untethered by validation walks with a different presence. She's not controlled by fear or waiting for permission to be herself. She doesn't need to be chosen, she's already chosen herself. That is ultimate power. Freedom and bondage aren't always obvious. Chains versus open doors. They exist subtly, shaping how people live, think, experience the world. Bondage isn't just physical confinement, it's inability to make choices, free from fear, expectation, or control. It's the silent force dictating what's acceptable, possible, forbidden. Freedom isn't absence of restrictions, it's defining one's path, making decisions rooted in personal truth rather than societal approval. A woman walking alone, choosing to live outside conventional molds of marriage and dependency, faces questions, criticism, misunderstanding. Yet in solitude, she claims freedom many never dare to embrace. Bondage often masquerades as tradition, duty, responsibility. It presents itself as a life lived a certain way according to generational rules. Women are told to marry, not because incapable of existing without men, but because it's how it's always been done. Conditioned to believe fulfillment comes from wifehood, motherhood, assigned roles predetermined before comprehension of true desires. This bondage is subtle, yet powerful, operating in the mind, convincing individuals they're making choices, while following handed-down scripts. Independence is deemed temporary, eventual settling down inevitable, happiness confined within relationship structures. Fear of being alone, judgment, stepping outside norms, keeps many trapped in unserving situations, diminishing relationships, unreflective lives. Freedom is questioning all this, courageously asking, is this really what I want or what I've been told to want? Realizing happiness doesn't come from conforming, but understanding oneself deeply, living aligned with truths. Choosing solitude isn't rejecting love or companionship, it's rejecting conformity to feel beholden. Living on one's terms, fearless of societal disapproval. Unlearning conditioning means seeing through illusions that security comes from predetermined paths. True security stems from self-knowledge, so complete external validation becomes irrelevant. Fulfillment is internal, not granted by others. A woman embracing this moves untethered, unafraid, unshaken by others' expectations. Bondage masquerades as comfort, suggesting freedom equals instability, solitude equals struggle. True struggle is living a borrowed life, existing within frameworks built for others. Discomfort breaking free is temporary. Remaining bound lasts lifetimes. Fear of independence hides unawareness that deepest loneliness resides in untruthful living. Freedom requires strength, self-trust, willingness to be misunderstood, facing criticism, judgment, concern from those uncomfortable with nonconformity. Questions arise. Don't you want a family? Aren't you afraid of being alone? What will you do when older? These aren't about her well-being, they're about others' discomfort facing defiance. True freedom stops seeking permission, explaining oneself, fitting into worlds not designed for individuality, standing in truth without apology, making decisions from clarity, recognizing life isn't scripted, but uniquely unfolding. Many live entire lives without knowing freedom, remaining caged, never questioning locked doors. Those daring to step beyond experience rarity, life fully their own. A woman walking alone, not out of necessity but choice, isn't lost, incomplete, or waiting for someone to finish her story. She writes it herself, every step, unburdened by expectation. Life doesn't happen to us, it happens from within. Everything experienced, joy, sorrow, struggle, triumph, doesn't stem externally but from perception and response. Many search outside for completion, happiness, meaning. Chasing relationships, success, approval, material wealth, believing these bring fulfillment. But fulfillment isn't given or taken by external forces. It arises internally, from engaging with life, awareness depth, harmony with oneself. A woman walking alone, without societal markers of success, is viewed as missing something. People assume loneliness, longing for companionship, waiting for someone to complete her story. This assumption misunderstands life fundamentally. Someone realizing life happens within doesn't look outward for happiness. Happiness isn't found in relationships, it's carried within, independent of circumstances, societal expectations. Believing happiness depends externally makes one a prisoner to the outer world. Emotions sway with praise, criticism, relationships, solitude. Existence becomes reactive, dictated by uncontrollable forces. But understanding experiences originate internally reclaims power, no longer victims of circumstance, ceaselessly pursuing validation, allowing externals to dictate inner states. A woman cultivating this understanding feels no incompleteness without marriage, lacks nothing outside traditional frameworks, waits for no one to love her, finding deep love within. She seeks no happiness in others, discovering boundless joy in self-peace. Solitude isn't feared. Knowing true loneliness isn't people's absence but connection to oneself. Many chase external goals, believing achievements, perfect partners, ideal lives, bring happiness. Fulfillment doesn't work that way. External achievements, wealth, perfect relationships can't bring lasting happiness without internal well-being. Inner discontent breeds lack, despite abundance. Unresolved unrest persists regardless of perfection. True freedom realizes nothing outside, creates lasting fulfillment. Relationships, success, comforts add richness but aren't happiness sources or inner peace foundations. A woman understanding this moves differently, already whole, defining her path, needing no husband to validate existence. Existence is valid, complete as is. People fear solitude, associating it with emptiness, equating aloneness with loneliness, viewing life without romance as lacking. Solitude isn't void. It's immense possibility. Space to know oneself beyond societal noise, distractions, external validations, cultivating self-awareness, listening to inner voices drowned by others' opinions. A woman embracing solitude doesn't escape it. She sees opportunity for deeper self-understanding, growth impossible amidst external validation pursuits. Believing women need husbands for fulfillment reflects outdated notions tying worth to relationships. When understanding life originates internally, fulfillment isn't external. It's cultivated through awareness, self-acceptance, realizing nothing outside creates lasting peace. Living this understanding, moving without lack, desperation for love, fear of solitude, having found love, joy within, seeking happiness externally fades. Already realized, true happiness is an inside job. A woman walking alone, understanding this, isn't lost, waiting, incomplete. She lives deeply free, knowing life doesn't happen to her. It flows through her. A woman walking alone isn't lost, incomplete, or seeking external validation. She isn't waiting for something outside to make her whole. She's realized true fulfillment doesn't stem from achievements, relationships, or societal approval. It comes from within. She's broken free from conditioning insisting conformity equals acceptance, predetermined paths equal worthiness. She's chosen freedom over bondage, authenticity over expectation, self-awareness over blind conformity. Her life isn't dictated by fear of solitude, judgment, inadequacy. Instead, she walks confidently, knowing existence isn't defined by societal rules. She doesn't shrink to fit spaces not meant for her, silence her voice for others, comfort. She stands fully, unapologetically, knowing she's enough exactly as she is. In a world demanding agreeableness, desirability, acceptability, she chooses instead to be herself. Understanding life isn't about fulfilling others' expectations, but aligning with personal truth. True security doesn't come from attachment but self-trust. Joy doesn't come from approval but inner peace. Love doesn't come from others but from deep, unshakable connection with oneself. She isn't afraid of solitude, knowing deepest loneliness isn't people's absence but self-awareness's absence. She doesn't seek completion in another, having already found completeness within. She doesn't pursue validation, having already granted herself permission to exist exactly as she is. She's free, not because the world bestowed freedom, but because she claimed it, and in that freedom she walks, not in expectation's shadow but in her truth's light.